Okay, here I am again, ready or not. And here's my playing music. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Okay, this is the Midnight Skeptic show number 105. Woo. And this will be broadcast on Sunday at the usual time, this Sunday, the 29th, 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Petaluma Standard Time. It's all the same. Okay, the Midnight Skeptic, as I have said, and I am going to keep saying on every show now, is proudly woke. And the goal of this show, one of the goals, a real goal of this show is to reduce my stress level and my anger level, which I don't really have anyway. But the goal of this is to rid this country of GOP MAGA-head Republicans, one broadcast at a time. And I encourage all of my MAGA-head listeners out there, I don't honestly believe I have any, but yeah, if they stumble onto this, send all hate mail, death threats, and useful suggestions to the Midnight Skeptic at gmail.com. I'll get it. I'll deal with it. I'll wallow in it. Whatever. And I'm kind of fighting off a cold or flu or something. My throat is, I've been coughing, and I think I coughed up the last of the crap that's in there that would disrupt it. But during the show, I may cough some, so deal with it. Okay, and this particular show is will deal with and concentrate on my personal anti-religious sentiments. And I assure you that I'm not an angry old Larry David type that my son reminds me not to be, and I'm trying not to be that. I like to laugh too much and enjoy life too much to just be filled with anger. And as I've said before on other shows, I'm not a Buddhist, but one of the things that I ran across the current Dalai Lama that said is, and I agree with it, and I've always agreed with it, even before I heard him say this, anger is the ultimate destroyer of your own peace of mind. Hear, hear. I heartily agree with that. Okay, shout outs. The State of the Free Press 2023 is out now. It's by Mickey Huff and Andy Lee Roth of Project Censored. And go to projectcensored.org if you want to order a signed copy. If you can, it's been out for a couple of weeks now, but Andy Lee Roth and Mickey Huff both are clinging to their memories of how to sign their names on the front page of their book. So, order it before they forget. Okay? All right. And come join Petaluma Conversations at the Petaluma Library every Tuesday this month, and probably on into February as well. It's every Tuesday at 5:45 in the library, Petaluma Library, and it's hosted by John Crowley of Aquas Cafe Group and Leo Zweier. Interesting local, national, and socially relevant topics will be discussed in a structured manner so everybody gets to be heard and listened to, and what they say reflected officially by the designated reflector, I guess. Honestly, it's a bit too structured for my taste, but it's full of interesting people, interesting topics. So people in Petaluma, if you're listening to this, get down to the library on Tuesday at 5:45 and join in. Okay, locally, Tom Gaffey at the Phoenix Theater, Nariman. Tom and Nariman, we're going to have to get together for a glass of wine again. Geez, it's been, a year and a half, maybe? Okay, Tom and Nancy, Keith and Cody, Kevin and Lori, Dave and Rosie Takach up in Sacramento. Rich and Kathy Berger in Sebastopol, Dennis and Megan and Tiburon, Pacifica. Stan and Kathy and Susan, the lefty Miller, is down there. I've got to meet her one of these days. She can't be more progressive or left-wing than I am, but, I'd like to talk to her. Dennis, let's see, I'm off my notes. Okay, San Francisco, Yvonne Santos, in L.A., Jackie Kolar, and her two daughters, Melanie and Samantha, who listen in occasionally. Over to Arizona, my brother Brandon and his wife Mina, Andrea, and Tim. Their daughter, my niece, she's a nurse. Take care of yourself. The COVID variants are coming back, and there are three little terrorists, as they say. Arkansas, Shannon Reed. Florida, Nelson and Alice Lydell and Amelia Beamer. North Carolina, Dr. Dave Rubin and his wife, Vicki. Up to Long Island, Geraldine Goldfinger. Excuse me. I hope that's not the first of many. Geraldine Goldfinger, Long Island. Sonora, Robert and Colleen Finnegan, Bob and Sandy Fisher, Brad and Martha, their son and daughter. Martha, you're a nurse too. Wear your PPE. Take care. The dreaded COVID is coming back. Darrell, Judy, Leonidas, Kathy Francis, Lynn Quayle, John Gleason up in Twain Harte, and his two daughters, Jennifer and Tiffany. Occasionally they listen in too. And all the way down to Mexico City, Rosamalia Lopez Negrete. She listens in, every now and then. Okay, I promised that I would start off every program with good news. And end every program with good news and try to find more good news, throughout the broadcast. However, this particular show, I'm warning you, is going to be sort of an anti-religion screed. Okay, good news to start with. Okay, inflation is on its way down. I'm having a brain freeze already. The GPA is up. Is that the right acronym? Anyway, our economy is up. And the Orange Sociopathic Bloat Bag indictments by Fannie Willis, the Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney, they're just days away in the indictments. He's going to be put on trial. Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, both groups found guilty. Okay, that's the good news. Okay, a bit of bad news. Okay, the homophobic NFL coach and NFL TV analyst Tony Dungy. This is an article, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, But last week, Tony Dungy tweeted a response to a Minnesota state lawmaker discussing whether to put tampons in men's restrooms for the convenience of transgender folks who use the men's room. Oh, excuse me. Okay. In response to that suggestion by this Minnesota state lawmaker, Tony Dungy tweeted, "That's nothing. Some school districts are putting litter boxes in the school bathrooms for the students who identify as cats. Very important to address every student's needs." Well, I've talked about the origin of that right-wing lie, and it's been picked up by right-wing jerks and spread over the internet and through right-wing hate circles, and that is all they are. Okay. Tony Dungy deleted the tweet after about 7 hours with no explanation or apology. It's so unfair to characterize anti-LGBTQ extremists as lacking a sense of humor, although I guess he was trying to be humorous. Andy Womack, for instance, this strident anti-gay Christian evangelist, has a huge audience, at least in part because of his close personal friendships and working relationship with famous TV football talking heads like Tony Dungy and James Brown. Both Dungy and Brown are annual speakers. Are annual speakers at Womack's big televised shindig. Okay. Laughter's the best medicine, and here's an example of classic right-wing fundamentalist humor. In a podcast, Dungy's bestie friend Womack. Sorry about that. In a podcast, Dungy's bestie Womack cited statistics showing that transgender kids have a much higher suicide rate than do so-called straight kids. Quote, "So homosexuality is 3 times worse than smoking?" Womack said, winding up for the killer punchline. Quote, "We ought to put a label across their foreheads. This," meaning being gay, "could be hazardous to your health." Another cough coming up. Okay. Now, I want to let you know, speaking of suicide, Tony Dungy's 18-year-old son, Jamie, committed suicide in 2005, and I have some experience with this, so I sympathize with him, and it was not known exactly the reason for it, and I wish him peace with what happened. It's a very difficult situation, but that does not excuse Tony Dungy from being called a complete jerk by me, the Midnight Skeptic. All right. That's new topic. Whew. I wonder if a sip of coffee would help. All right. historical bad news. Here's where it begins. My thoughts about religion, all religion. Men seized control of people's worries about what was considered right and wrong. What's considered right and wrong, and how to affect the unknown forces of nature back in the second millennium before the current era, BCE. From about 1000 BCE to 2000 BCE. Zoroastrianism, sometimes called the official religion of ancient Persia. I will make it through this broadcast come hell or high water. Zoroastrianism, sometimes called the official religion of ancient Persia, is one of the oldest surviving religions. The Indo-Europeans from the western steppes of Asia, who came down to the Persian plateau, brought a quote-unquote religion that was used as a patriarchal tool to elevate the status and power of men over women. These, semi-nomadic pastoralists, Indo-Europeans, settled in northern India, where the Vedas were written eventually. They were orally transmitted before they were written. And on the Persian plateau, where Zoroastrianism developed. That name comes from Zarathustra, who supposedly wrote the earliest texts, the Gathas, or songs of praise, to Ahura Mazda. He, I emphasized it's masculine, was known to the Greeks as Zoroaster. Ahura Mazda, which means the wise Lord, is the wise Lord is all God. I don't know what I meant by that note. But Angra Mainyu is the evil, destructive spirits. They are twin brothers. Meaning men. Some men or group of men were more devious and intelligent. And I'm talking about these pastoralists from the steppes that eventually settled in the Persian plateau and the northern reaches of what is now India. Some of these men or group of men who were more devious and intelligent developed religions such as Zoroastrianism, or that who could write, and they wrote the Vedas. After orally transmitting the Vedas to their followers, who these men claim to have been directly revealed to seers among the early Aryans, these pastoralists in India. Hymns, philosophy, and guidance, or rituals, preserved by oral tradition. and then they were written down in early Sanskrit, and they became Hinduism. Oh boy. In Christianity, the early biblical writings of men, such as 1 Corinthians 11:3, which says, "At the head of every household is a man. At the head of man is Christ, and the head of every woman is a man, and the head of Christ is God." In Genesis, which was written by men, quote, "The Lord God said, 'It is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helpmeet for him.'" And in parentheses in the article I read, "a suitable helper" means helpmeet. And this is Genesis 1:26. Okay, cut ahead 1,000 or 1,500 years. And we're being inundated with sayings from a Southern Baptist pastor and head of a Southern Baptist seminary, I think in Oklahoma. The word of God is to be transmitted to the congregants by a man. Okay. And here's a quote from, where does it come from? 1 Corinthians 14:34-35. Quote, "As in all the congregations of the saints, women should remain silent in churches. They are not allowed to speak, but must be in submission." As the law says, if they want to inquire about something, they should ask their own husbands at home, for it is disgraceful for a woman to speak in church. Unquote. 1 Corinthians 14:34-35. This is the basis, one of the bases, for me saying in, I don't know, a lot of my shows that all religions are misogynistic. Some more than others, but it doesn't matter. They are all that way. Okay. Right now, I want to announce to all of my thousands and thousands of YouTubers and KPCA LP 103.3 listeners, as if you didn't already know it before, that I am not just agnostic and borderline atheist, but actively anti-religion, meaning all religions. I have said many times on my show that the world would be much better off today if religion had never reared its ugly head in this world. I believe religion is a devious method of controlling the masses, and more specifically, half the world's population, meaning women. Was it Marx that said, or is it Lenin that said, religion is the opiate of the masses? Well, They were right. Okay, I am Islamophobic. Okay? Christianophobic. Hindu-phobic. Buddhistophobic. I'm kind of making up these words to kind of fit with the pattern. Jewishophobic. Jainophobic. Mormonophobic. Sikhophobic. I think it's actually pronounced sick. Really, sickophobic. And all cultophobic. And any others that you care to mention that come to mind. Cultophobic. Okay, well, that covers Scientology. I'm anti-them, too. Since I am an American, a Californian, a white, cisgender, heterosexual male, I've been exposed somewhat to the Christian religion. I was baptized into the Presbyterian Church as a baby. They didn't consult me. So, I am not a student of religion of any kind. I've just been exposed more to the stupidity of Christianity here in the U.S., especially Southern Baptists and their unapologetic misogyny. I told you what that one pastor said. I think I mentioned him about 8 or 9 shows ago, who this guy was that said the word of God is to be preached by a man to the congregants. Okay, now that I've gotten all that out of my system, going back to pre-literate and therefore prehistoric eras, Göbekli Tepe, the Neolithic site in Turkey just north of the Syrian border. It's being excavated even as we speak. The world's oldest known megaliths. Anthropomorphic carvings that they found led to archaeological disputes, meaning interpretations different from each other depending on, what the archaeologist's personal beliefs are. This led to disputes in archaeological circles over whether it was a temple or not. It probably was used as a sanctuary for groups of hunter-gatherers. Göbekli Tepe is, what is it? Paleolithic. Whether or not a woman's labor or women's labor was also used to erect these megaliths, nobody really knows. But my guess is that a small group of more devious, smart, tribal leaders convinced the rest of the simpletons that they heard God, that they were seers, that they were knowers of what God is saying. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to probably continue this throughout the broadcast. About half an hour. Okay. These underhanded, devious, but smart tribal leaders were the first priests. All men, of course. Men in general do have, after all, a physical advantage over women. And women were, they were kept busy rearing children and doing domestic chores. Another Neolithic site in Turkey is Çatalhöyük. It is termed a proto-city settlement that was occupied from about 7,500 BC to about 6,400 BC. Almost all buildings were domestic. That's where people actually lived, and there were no obvious public buildings accessible through the holes in the ceiling and raised doors that all needed ladders to get into and out of. The ceilings or the roofs were acted as the like the town square. Ritualistic burials were the only signs of any kind of beliefs. Excuse me. Phone call.
Call from V7.
Hello? No, I didn't. Okay. Can we do it in about an hour? Okay. See you then. Bye. Sorry for the interruption. My car needs a new battery, and Out West Garage, who's the only garage that I will trust with my Miata, just got a delivery of a battery. Okay. This is real life. I need another sip of coffee. Okay. Where was I? Ritualistic burials, clay figurines of men with erections, men hunting, and cattle are found in some rooms that may have been used as shrines. Carvings and figurations of fertility women were found. Ian Hodder, an archaeologist, the British archaeologist of the 1990s, disputed an earlier archaeologist claim that these figurines were mother goddesses. And there was no way to tell for sure whether or not the society was a matriarchy or a patriarchy. And I go along with this. There's no way to tell. Çatalhöyük has strong evidence of egalitarianism, an egalitarian society. There were no houses with distinctive features that would belong to royalty or religious hierarchy. Recent investigations reveal little social distinction based on gender, with men and women receiving equivalent nutrition and seeming to have equal social status as typically found in Paleolithic cultures. Okay. Çatalhöyük was a living city where people lived in constructed adobe brick houses that they could get into above and on the side, as opposed to Oh God, I've already go as opposed to Gobekli Tepe, which was a sanctuary, or it may have been some sort of temple. Okay, but there was no evidence of agriculture or living houses around it. Okay, there's a big difference between those two, but um, uh, typically found in Paleolithic cultures, all the people that lived in Paleolithic sites were more or less free from priests and religious hierarchy. Equal status has been posited as the rule in Paleolithic sites. All right, so what has gone wrong in the world? Well, religion. How many man created religions evolved into the sickening spectacle of Joel Osteen's mega churches and private jets? The Southern Baptist pronouncement that, okay, here's where I quote this guy. Quote, the word of God is to be preached by men, unquote. I know I'd written that down somewhere in my notes. Okay. Okay. Bad news. Pakistan's Muslim blasphemy laws has been hardened by their parliament to include insults to the Prophet Muhammad and his wives, companions, and close relatives. And blasphemy carries with it the death penalty. The Taliban's ending education for girls beyond the third grade and prohibiting women to work outside the home or to travel anywhere without a male relative are, well, that's the Muslim version of misogyny. And to travel anywhere, they need to drape a black bag over themselves when they do go out. Okay. Excuse me again. Like I say, all religions are misogynistic and basically tamp down the human spirit. If there are any Christians among my YouTube watchers and thousands of KPCALP listeners, they will probably say to themselves, he, meaning me, the Midnight Skeptic, is a sad and angry person, probably lonely. He needs the love of Jesus. Sorry, Jesus screamers. I see the overall humor in the world. I like to laugh at the world's absurdity. I do get somewhat angry, mostly at MAGA-head GOP politicians. But although I'm not a Buddhist, I do go by what the Dalai Lama once said a few decades ago, and I've said this earlier in this show, anger is the ultimate destroyer of your own peace of mind. Well, I believe that I have peace of mind. I'm not angry, but I just see the utter uselessness of religion and the harm that it does. I do wish religion would just disappear off the face of the earth, no matter what religious people claim it does for them. I know it won't happen. The world is hilariously absurd that way. This Midnight Skeptic show, a little wine sipping in moderation, and especially petting my cat helps me to carry on. Carry on, carry on. Okay, so back to regular programming. That was my anti-religious rant. Okay, let me say one thing that was kind of out of sequence. Bad news on the book ban front. North Dakota, Mike LaFleur, capital Lefor, Mike LaFleur. He's a Republican, of course. He's the House Majority Leader who submitted House Bill 1205, which prohibits libraries, public libraries, all libraries, from maintaining sexually explicit books. And of course, I suppose he gets to determine what that is. Imprisonment for librarians who don't remove such books from shelves. The argument on the House of Representatives from North Dakota took place on the 17th on this bill in the North Dakota Assembly. LaFleur and my notes are kind of jumbled. This is what LaFleur said. He said that libraries in North Dakota currently contain books that contain, quote, disturbing and disgusting, unquote, content. Well, his opinions, fascist though they are, will probably pass. Okay. Now, here's an update on something I said on the show, I think 2 shows ago. Hamline University was sued by Erica Lopez Prater, the adjunct professor who was fired for showing in her art class a reverential image of the Prophet Muhammad. The painting was commissioned by a 14th century caliph. No one knows what he really looked like, of course. And for that matter, no one knows what Jesus really looked like. On these tube-like candles for memorials, a lot of them have a depiction of Jesus. Sometimes he looks like he was from Sweden. Boy. Okay. Anyway, Ms. Aram Wedatala, capital Wedatalla, an observant Muslim student, complained. In spite of being warned and by the teacher and students who might be offended were allowed to exit the class before she showed the pictures with no problems. Anyway, despite all of that, this creep complained. She was fired. She was labeled Islamophobic. According to the lawsuit, Ms. Wedatala wanted to impose her specific religious views on Lopez Prater, non-Muslim students, and Muslim students who didn't object to images of the Prophet Muhammad. Okay, Ellen Waters, Watters, the chair of the university's Board of Trustees, said, quote, like all organizations, sometimes we misstep. The usage of the term Islamophobic was flawed. CAIR, C-A-I-R, of Minnesota supported the firing. That's the Council on American Islamic Relations. Other Muslims in academia rushed to Lopez's defense. So there's a dichotomy in the Islamic community about how serious to take this blasphemy things about showing the image of the Prophet Muhammad. Okay. Blasphemy break. I'm going to commit blasphemy on this show. Excuse me, right now. That must be Allah punishing me in advance. Okay. The Prophet Muhammad didn't know what he was talking about. He did not receive words from this false god in the sky. He didn't do any of that. And he was kind of a jerk. Anyway, there's my moment of blasphemy. If there's any militant Islamic extremists out there with their AK-47s, you know where to find me. Come get me. Not to harp on a point, and I'm fully cognizant that the vast majority of Muslims are actually peaceful people just living their lives and worshiping in their, to me, misguided religion. But Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State, all killers in the name of Allah and the Prophet Muhammad. These guys in those organizations I just mentioned should be wiped off the face of this earth. Okay, I don't know whether this is good news or bad news, but don't forget that the National Prayer Breakfast is on Friday, February the 3rd, back in Washington, D.C. Be interesting to see who actually attends this thing this year. Okay. A prominent Bangladeshi member of parliament is demanding an investigation of how, quote, anti-religious propaganda, unquote, has found its way into children's textbooks. What's this propaganda that he's talking about? Darwin's theory of evolution. And this is a quote from this guy. Quote, as Muslims, we are children of Adam. There's no chance of being monkeys. It is an insult to Islam. A blasphemy law should be enacted, he said. Okay. Now this is, I don't know, I labeled this as bad news, but it's a Latin phrase. It may be actually good news. There's a Latin phrase, cuius regio, eius religio. Okay, now what does that mean for my non-Latin speakers out there? Quote, whose realm, comma, his religion. Now that means that whatever king or dictator or emperor is in power gets to bring his religion with him. Cuius regio, eius religio. Okay, why is that important? Okay, this bloody history made the church-state wall so important to the founders. By founders, I mean of this country. Bringing religion into the public arena was to let loose a monster. Okay. I think I've timed this out right for a change. Okay, there's two organizations that I want to let you know about. First one is Recovering from Religion. Go to this site if you want to join other people who have ditched religion for actual life. Okay, the second one is the Clergy Project. Now, this is, okay, well, I'll show you how to get to it. Clergy, CLERGY, at clergyproject.org. And it's made for ex-professional clergy people who no longer believe in the supernatural, God in the sky or anything like that. And it's an organization, and they go around speaking to groups. So I don't know. Well, probably not. There's no clergyman, ex or otherwise, that listens to this show. I hope so. But anyway, the Clergy Project. And if you want to be amongst others who have gotten out of religion, go to Recovering from Religion. It might be .org or .com. I'm not sure which. Okay, good news to end this broadcast. Dave Warnock, he's a former Christian fundamentalist pastor, and he was a self-identified Jesus freak back in the 70s. And he deconverted into a now right-thinking, rational humanist. And his quote about sin, S-I-N, okay, sin is a made-up religious word. It's not a thing. The great Christian narrative is that we're all born sinners. You're born into a sin nature, and that you have to be saved from that. You need a savior. Sin is something that you've done to offend God. Faith in Jesus or whatever will save you from being a sinner. This is a totally religious Christian lie that oftentimes does irreparable harm to people. So I'm beseeching my listeners and watchers out there to discard this notion of sin and just live a good life. Be kind. Be accepting of all of the myriad versions of people that there are on this planet, with the exception of MAGA heads. Got to toss that in. In short, I beseech my listeners to be woke. And I'm going to come out with some t-shirts that say proudly woke on it, plus some other things, I guess, about the Midnight Skeptic and my efforts to get rid of Republicans. So that's it. I'm going to play my out music. You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats. Okay, sorry about all the things associated with whatever it is that I've got. I made it through, and I will be doing this again. Probably will be broadcast KPCLP 103.3 on the 5th of February. And I'm going to record it, I don't know, the 1st or 2nd of February. So, I hope all of you are proudly woke, and those of you who have cats out there will pet them, and also, sip a little bit of red wine. So I will see you next week. So that's it, and I made it through.